Chapter 206, Grade to Sealed Artifacts. In the corridor within the deep and serene basement, the nearly 4-meter tall bone messenger disappeared before Klein's eyes after taking the letter. When all that was left of the surroundings were the classic gas lamps embedded in the walls. He put away Isaac's copper whistle and walked towards Chanis Gate. As he was writing the letter, he had already decided on which sealed artifact to pick. Firstly, it would be almost impossible for the Grade 3-3 sealed artifacts to have any effect on the baby in Megas's stomach, unless it was an item like the mutated Sun's sacred emblem, which had hidden powers. But at that very moment, in such a situation, Klein wasn't in the mood to explore or research a secret that might or might not exist. Plus, most sealed artifacts would carry a certain level of danger for the user. So, Klein eliminated the Grade 3 sealed artifacts that would weaken the user without affecting the enemy. Secondly, the Tinyan Nighthawks didn't have any Grade 1 sealed artifacts and only 3 Grade 2 artifacts. That was originally a secret that Klein wasn't allowed to know. But due to the urgency of the situation, Dunn made use of an emergency clause and told him the general situation. Dunn Smith couldn't hold any other sealed artifacts at the same time while holding Saint Selena's ashes. And behind the Tinyan City's Chanis Gate, there were 3 Grade 2 sealed artifacts: 22030, 2278, and 22105. The name of 2030 was an inexhaustible poison. It originated from a Beyonder with an unknown sequence name who suddenly went mad and cut his wrist to commit suicide. He let his blood flow into an ordinary silver cup. But when his blood ran dry, the silver cup wasn't filled, and the liquid in the cup became crystal clear and alluring. It was a temptation that even a Sequence 5 Beyonder had failed to resist. After he drank the liquid, he died of poisoning on the spot. After the person died, the poison seeped out through his pores and pulled together again. Its volume was the same as before he drank it, not one bit less. Dunn said that the researchers in the Holy Cathedral suspected that the poison could kill a high-sequence Beyonder. However, the question lay within the fact that it was almost impossible for a high-sequence Beyonder to be tempted to drink it. Furthermore, the traits of 22030 were obvious, so no one would consume it by accident. If one wanted to poison them, they had to first capture them, seize control of them, and then force it down their throat. But then, why go through the trouble? 2030 would constantly tempt the living things around it to drink it. The user had to be fully focused on resisting its power. Any slight negligence would make one drink the poison as though it was only natural to do so. When Dunn finished his description, Klein decided, almost instantly, to not pick that sealed artifact. The name of 22078 was Door of Death. Its appearance was like a normal wooden door. Any living thing that passed through it would die instantly. No high-sequence Beyonder had ever participated in the test. It possessed living traits and constantly attempted to escape. It could change its appearance and disguise itself into pre-existing doors. If the user made any mistakes, he would lose control of it. Then, he would need to be careful and not pass through any door near him. He would have to try to wait at the original spot for help or break through a wall to escape. Klein thought of using 278, but after reevaluating the latter two, he felt that the intuition of a legendary creature would be very sharp and would be able to differentiate whichever door was the door of death. In the end, he decided to pick 22105. The name of the sealed artifact was Blood Vessel Thief. It looked like a thick, stiffened blood vessel. Anyone who touched it, regardless of whether they were protected or not, would have their life stolen. In the beginning, it wouldn't be obvious, but if one didn't break contact with it, the effects would be visible half an hour later. Dunn said that a Sequence 5 heretic held onto it for 2 hours. He turned from a brawny man in his 30s into a hunched old man who had loose skin, thin white hair, and missing teeth. The most important trait of 2 to 105 was that the person wearing it would have the chance to steal an ability from a target within a specific range. Even high-sequence Beyonders could be robbed of their abilities, but the probability was smaller. Within a 10-minute time period, the person who was robbed would lose the corresponding ability, while the person who wore the item would be able to use the ability skillfully. 10 minutes later, the ability would vanish, and the person who was robbed would need to wait a couple of days to recover. Regardless of whether it works or not, it will at least raise the probability of success from 5% to 10%. In the King of Yellow and Black, who wields good luck after all besides? Our main goal is just to take precautions and make preparations to deal with the worst-case scenario. We won't necessarily have to take action, hopefully. Reinforcements will arrive soon. Klein stopped outside the duty room, showing no signs of hesitation anymore. About the negative effects of sealed artifact to 105, he wasn't worried because he wasn't planning to use the artifact himself. His plan was to give it to Leonard, as he already had the Flaring Sun Charm and Azek's Copper Whistle, who he had no idea if it would still be suppressed. My dear poet, it's time for you to show your true secret, Klein muttered and saw Sikatron standing by the duty room. With her white hair and black eyes, the part-time author remained silent for a few seconds before saying, "Why don't you guard Chanis Gate? I'm stronger and more experienced than you." "But you don't have Flaring Sun Charms," Klein replied with a smile. "Madam, I'm already a Sequence 8. It wouldn't be safe here either. There are many sealed artifacts that possess living traits that are itching to take action. Well, if we fail, the people here will definitely not survive. Heh, our goal upstairs is to buy time and wait for reinforcements. It might be safer than being around Chanis Gate." Sikatron puckered her lips slowly and drew a crimson moon on her chest. "May the goddess bless all of you." As Dunn didn't have the time to write the document in time, Klein couldn't enter Chanis Gate directly. All he did was watch Sikatron push open a tiny crack and enter. After a few minutes, she appeared by the door, and she was holding a thick, blood-tainted, pale blood vessel in her left hand. Klein extended his hand to take it, and he immediately felt a faint current surging in his body. In the reception hall of the Blackthorn Security Company, Leonard had already shaken off his stiff state from earlier, and his expression didn't look abnormal as he talked about the recently discovered house that Lanavis rented before. "Is that so? He never told me about it before," Megas replied normally, creasing her eyebrows slightly. Then, she grabbed her blonde hair, pulled out a handful, and casually threw it into the trash can by the side. Leonard was dumbfounded. He gulped with difficulty, and his palms were full of cold sweat once again. Klein walked up the stairs to the second floor with the blood vessel thief in his left hand. He looked at the door that led to the Nighthawk's break room, where Dunn Smith stood silently in his black windbreaker. His eyes were gray and deep, just like when they had first met. "Reintroducing myself, Nighthawk, Dunn Smith." The voice of the past sounded in Klein's ears as the scene of Dunn by Kinley's corpse flashed in his head. There was blood all over his mouth. He suddenly fell silent and walked over. He lifted his left hand and said, "Captain, I picked sealed artifact 2 to 105. I plan on letting Leonard use it." Dunn nodded slightly. He didn't ask why, but turned and pointed at his office as he spoke. "The Holy Cathedral sent a telegram. They said that they'll gather a team of strong Beyonders immediately and asked us to stall for as much time as possible and try to wait. About those coincidences, they didn't give any reply. I think they don't have any conclusions as of yet. Or perhaps the person who handles the telegrams doesn't know the actual situation and has no way to make guesses. You know, we have to make the best use of time. Telegrams can't be too long." "Yes," Klein nodded. He got closer to the partition and looked outside as he said, "How's the situation?" "Nothing strange as of yet." Dung looked down at the saint's ash box in his left hand. Seeing how Leonard and Megas were having a good time chatting, Klein didn't interrupt them. He retreated to the Nighthawk's recreation room and faced Dung with the corridor in between them. Just then, Dung suddenly let out a self-deprecating laugh. "I forgot something." "What is it?" Klein replied, puzzled. Dung looked sideways at him and said, "Daly told me to explain myself to you." Huh? Klein was stunned, as he couldn't quite understand what the captain meant. After 2 seconds, before Dung could reply, he suddenly understood. Madame Daly didn't reply immediately because she thought it was unnecessary. She had forwarded the matter to the captain and let him explain himself. That means that there isn't anything serious with the captain. At this critical point, Klein suddenly felt a surge of joy erupt inside of him.